not get even the primary victory, which I think would be a good thing for the Republican Party, but he's not going to see it that way.
All right, and we are live. This is Stone Guy 223. I appreciate everybody tuning in. We're just going to kind of have a cornucopia of topics, if you will. Starting on my far left, we've got Glock Guru. And he's probably eating or drinking.
Thanks for the invite. I'm there.
I didn't hear you. Sorry. Next to him, we got what's your channel name, Jacob?
My channel name is Waddle J. It's my last name plus my first initial. It's real hard to figure out.
Right on.
I think I have 5 subscribers, so you want to get in while the getting's good. Now.
And next to him, we got Good Guy.
Yo,
Good
what's
guy.
up?
And then we've got is that Tacoma?
Glorious Tacoma at your service.
And Nathan's Armory.
What, who, me? Yeah, I'm here.
All right. So I guess the first thing we could get into, we touched a little bit on it on Tack Daddy's show, was the Chipotle thing, the restaurant. I mean, honestly, I don't know why it's making as much news as it is, because there's tons of private businesses that don't allow firearms. So I really don't understand what's so novel or different about this one.
Well, also, there's not really much discussion because it's exactly the same thing that happened at Starbucks.
Well, I would actually contest that it's slightly different, because what happened at Starbucks were people coming in who were in open carry states with pistols on their hips, open carrying. Whereas what happened down here, because a lot of this happened down in Texas, is my understanding from what I've read from the articles, is in Texas, you can legally carry a rifle as long as you're not pointing it at anyone or showing it in a threatening manner out in public. I mean, it's not an open carry thing. It's not a concealed carry thing. It's just kind of an old rule, and saying you can carry this shotgun or rifle slung on your back. And these people are showing up to Chipotle and other places, with long guns on them, and it's freaking people the hell out.
Well, so that's the see. I didn't hear about that. I haven't, to be quite honest, I haven't really followed it, because once I heard the initial report of they released a statement, a kind of a mission statement for their corporation saying they don't want guns, and I was like, okay, they're one of many. But I guess if you're saying long guns, I mean that's
right. The trigger wasn't open carriers in open states showing up at Chipotle's. It was people walking in a non-open carry state, pistol-wise, with long guns shouldered over their arms, which, by the way, I've seen, I worked at a bank where we were across the street from a building, and they were doing SWAT training. The cops were. Our customers were freaking out because the SWAT team was training in the building, because of their presence, because of all these different SWAT guys from different areas in the area were doing this training thing they do, something like they do at the schools, and they were seeing those people with long guns and body armor, and they were like, "Oh my God, what's happening across the street?" And so I could just imagine if I'm at Chipotle eating my lunch, and somebody comes in with a 12 gauge Mossberg slung over their shoulder, an AR-15 on a sling across their chest, hanging down, pointed at the ground. And I'm concealed carrying, I'd be like, what the F is going on here? I'd be concerned. Because you don't see that.
The picture I was showing just now, well, a couple minutes ago, was a photo post on Instagram by Savoy Leather. And the picture is, here, I'll bring it up again in case a lot of people didn't see. It is about 5 or 6 open carriers in a Chipotle there in Texas, and what he reports is that it was an organized and, quote, welcomed open carry protest in Texas. Like, it wasn't just one or two guys coming in. It was like organized by an open carry organization, not actually mentioned, and it was like sanctioned by this organization, but for the most part, it was accepted by the staff themselves. And like, it was obviously a protest. It wasn't just one or two guys filtering in throughout the day. It was like all at once. And so either they saw the people doing this, their corporate did, and they said, well, even though this individual franchise is allowing it, we don't want this to happen. And they shut it down, or the two are completely unrelated. But as far as I can tell, it is being misrepresented as a couple of wackos coming in and scaring everybody, when in actuality it was like it was an organized situation.
Yeah, and I've been hearing about this where these open carry groups are like that picture showed, carrying AR-15 slung across the front of their chests, and they're like on street corners handing out flyers to people in cars and stuff. Okay, approaching cars with AR strapped across their chest, handing out pamphlets is what they're doing, and then they
I bet all those cars stopped. I bet
Well,
they took that pamphlet and they didn't turn them down.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that's what they're doing out on the streets, and then they decide, okay, they're going to go in Chipotle, and they probably knew the owner of that Chipotle, because let's think about it. This is a fast food chain, so it's probably owned by just an individual, and he's like, yeah, sure, come on in. If it's not illegal, come on in. And then, of course, it gets all over Instagram, so their corporate's like, what the hell? You know?
Now let's think about that, though. I mean, because honestly, I mean, we're all freedom-loving, gun-loving guys here, but honestly, do we think that's the best representation? I mean, despite the fact of whether or not it's legal, or whether or not you're trying to prove a point or express your freedoms and your rights, to me, that's just not a very good way to go about it. Carry a handgun. I mean, rifle. It's not a common thing to see a rifle.
You can't open carry a handgun in Texas.
Oh, but you can do a rifle?
But you can do a rifle, yeah. You can open carry rifles, but not handguns in Texas.
Well, that doesn't make a damn bit of sense.
But that's the way the law is.
I think that's the point of the protest. They're like, we can carry around these long-range, high-powered rifles, but we can't carry around pistols.
Well, what's more than likely going to happen is, because there's a lot of people in Texas who want open carry a pistol, and they've been asking the legislature for it for a long time. I think what's going to happen is these guys with the rifles are going to prompt a law banning open carry of rifles now if they keep it up. You know, not that it would pass, but there are going to be some legislatures who are going to bring that up.
Well, who's to say that they haven't brought it up? And it was so unpopular that it just what I'm trying to say, it was so unpopular that it just immediately got shut down. And it's like the fellow legislators are like, yeah, we'd like that, but you can't say that. Like, you can't propose that in Texas of all places.
Well, as pro-gun a state as Texas is, we are kind of middle of the road in the fact that I think that a lot of the people in our legislature kind of don't want the image of cowboys. So they're okay with concealed carry, but they don't really like open carry. And you'd think open carry, it's like it's Texas. Why don't we have open carry? We should have been the first one on that. But the legislature's kind of been putting it off and not wanting it so much. But they have passed quite a few laws. They got concealed carry. They got the Safe Motorist Act, where you can carry a concealed gun in your car with no licensing, a pistol. So that's a plus.
As a Oklahoma concealed carry permit holder, which also means that I'm also an open carry permit holder, it really surprises me how how lax gun laws are in the states surrounding Texas than actually in Texas itself.
Now, y'all only passed open carry last year, didn't you? 1 or 2 years ago?
I think it'll be 2 years this November, which means this November it will be at least 2 years before you guys have.
Yeah,
No, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, we have a statewide, no CCW needed open carry, but not that many people do. I mean, I do just to promote, good gun ownership or whatever, but a lot of people aren't even aware that it's a state law, and not that many that are aware actually, take advantage of it.
And honestly, Marine, if I had a outside waistband holster that wasn't just like an Uncle Mike style holster, I would probably open carry also, at least from time to time, if not all the time.
Yeah. I enjoy the conversations that come up when I open carry. They're not all the time, but it's always interesting to see how it goes. Generally with the people in Washington that aren't familiar with it, the first question I get is do you have a permit to open carry? And that's when I get my first chance to educate them, and I say, well, did you know our state law allows for open carry? As long as you can lawfully own a firearm, you can open carry. And a lot of them don't even know it, They just assume that it's taboo.
So what? So kind of getting back to the whole private business thing. I mean, that really put a different spin on it, knowing that it was a kind of an organized protest. I mean, that does bring a little bit different variable to the mix, but ultimately, it is a private business's right to not to allow firearms. So you as a consumer, do you seek out? I mean, would you purposely not frequent a place that doesn't allow firearms? Would you just carry your firearm anyway? Or would you make it a point not to support a company or an organization that doesn't allow firearms?
Are we talking about open carry or concealed carry, or just?
No, I'm just saying, just firearms in general. When you go to a place and you says, no firearms allowed,
right.
What's your response to that?
I base mine on my state law. This is just for me, but our state law says that if you carry on to even a posted property other than federal properties, if you carry onto their property, if they ask you not to do it or to leave and you don't, then you can get a misdemeanor charge, right? It's basically just a ticket. And so it has no bearing on my carry permit. There's a monetary fine, but they'd have to ask me to leave, and I would have not to leave to even get the ticket. So I generally conceal carry even if it's posted, because I'm not breaking a criminal law. And but I do definitely favor places where I can open carry and not even have to conceal or whatever if I have a choice. So that's where I land at.
I would like to just simply point this out real quick. Chipotle and Starbucks, both, when approached by anti-fire gun groups years ago, stated that I'm not sure if they were. I know Starbucks was approached. I'm not sure Chipotle was.
Chipotle was approached. Chipotle was approached by moms.
Yeah, hold on. Let me finish. They were approached and asked to ban guns, and they said, "We're not going to ban guns. We're not going to take a stance on it as a corporation. If the local law says people can open carry, they can open carry. Blah blah blah." It was when people started to gather large groups and do these sit-in protest things in these private businesses that their corporate offices took notice and then made these decisions. See what I'm saying? It wasn't that they wanted to make this decision. It was the fact that they were targeted by these groups to be made into a pro-gun Instagram, all over YouTube business, and they're
it's okay unless they're pressured. So I mean,
it was pressured. They were just basically, like all business, saying law's a law, But as soon as they become, how do I say, when people are running around with T-shirts that say Starbucks loves guns on them, and everyone decides to meet at Starbucks to wear their guns, and they're filling up their stores, it pushed the point with them to where they had to either endorse or not endorse. Before, they were just hands off.
Right. I often wonder, because like at the Starbucks things, from what I saw, one or two people would be offended. They call corporate office when the rest of the customers there could really give a rat's ass, So you got one person pushing their will on the larger group just by voicing their complaint to the management.
Okay, wait a second. Let's think about this logically. Who drinks expensive Starbucks coffee and who buys expensive Chipotle burritos? Okay.
I do. I go to Starbucks every day.
I know. Exactly.
Sorority girls.
Yuppies.
Sorority girls.
Yuppies.
I.e.
Well,
me.
yeah, them too.
Yeah, yuppies, one percenters, those types, okay? So that's why those businesses cater to people who kind of are liberal and left-leaning typically. They have conservatives who go in there, but if they had to take their total number of customer base, they're going to have a lot more liberals than conservatives who frequent their joints typically. So, again, who are you going to keep happy? The majority of your customers or not? You know, type thing.
People like me, people like me are like the minority of the yuppies.
But I give you that that's their core people that are going there. But do you really think that a large percentage of those people in that group are actually calling to complain to management about the guns? Or do you think it is like I do, where it's only 5% of those people that have a stick up their ass that bother to call corporate and raise a fit?
So,
I think it's even less than that.
So Luke, I have a question for you. You said in your state that they have open carry, and most people don't even know that because so few people open carry, right? That's what you said earlier. Okay, so what happens when in Washington, when people are showing up at Starbucks, when there's 30 people in the restaurant and 15 of them are open carrying guns?
It's really not that big of a deal. I've seen it happen, and the people that were there didn't seem uncomfortable.
Yeah, they didn't seem uncomfortable around all the people with guns, but they probably got on their cell phones. They got on their cell phones, they got on their Twitter, they got on their crap and said, 15 people wearing guns came into Starbucks tonight. I can't stand these open carriers, blah, 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 blah. You know how people are.
Put down your guns.
I would say that the 5% out there that are anti-gun activists might do that.
A bunch of hippies complained, I guarantee you.
15 of them. Yeah, but it was the 5% of the hippies that were complaining, not the 95% that were complaining. That's my point.
5% is huge. For a corporation to have 5% complain is huge in their book. They normally get 0 complaints. All of a sudden they get flooded.
Okay, here's my solution to this. Why don't we just head them off at the pass and just any time that we see people starting to open carry in a certain place, like they started to do at Starbucks before they couldn't, like they used to do at Chipotle before a couple of days ago, why don't we just all start calling into their corporate office and say, hey man, I see that there's a bunch of people starting to open carry in your restaurants. That's awesome. I love it. I'm never going to buy another burrito from Taco Bell, from Baja Fresh, from nowhere besides Chipotle or whatever. And you just very positive reinforcing experience. Because right now,
but the thing is,
and negative.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Positives.
The thing is it only takes one oh shit to fuck up 1,000 attaboys. So even if you got 1,000 people calling in saying we support you doing this and we're going to give you more business for allowing the open carry, that couple of people calling in and being negative about it is enough for them to stop it anyways. You know what I mean?
We did the same thing. I'm sorry. We did the same thing for Starbucks before they issued that letter. When Starbucks issued their stance, we were praising the living hell out of them. They were the pro, especially when they said that, it's not against the law. We support our customers, and then all of a sudden they turn around. We did that, and then they changed their mind. But we did support them initially.
Well, in that case, it might not work. Let's try it this next time to see if they do listen to it. Because with Starbucks, they may have just been anti-gun and they were just waiting for a good reason. Or it could be like Luke said, that 1,000 attaboys is totally negated by one oh shit. But I'm just saying, let's just try it at least one more time, see if it works, and then if it doesn't, we'll just know better.
I think.
I will say this. Oh, good.
I just think that these groups need to stop staging large group meetings and protests, a large group meeting or a protest, either one, whatever they want to call it, in national chains. There's plenty of other places to meet where there's public people, where you can make your points and hand out flyers and do stuff. City Hall, public squares, parks, all sorts of places. When you go into a national chain, it makes some douche CEO in another state and city have to make a decision. That's
Didn't
the
this
problem.
happen? Didn't this happen with Starbucks where we were like
I-
open carrying rallies and stuff?
So why
before?
does it have to end there, though? Why can't the pro-gun side come back and go, why did you bow to that pressure? And then make them suffer, because if as many people as said Starbucks guns and coffee never went back to Starbucks because of that, then see who's actually got buying power. Because I suspect there's more, like Luke is saying, of the people that are not gun people, only a few of them are anti-gun people. But if you take all the people that are pro-gun and get them to consistently boycott a place, that's exactly what the antis are doing. And I just jumped in here, but you guys said that they didn't bow. They totally bowed. They bowed to the pressure of these groups saying that they didn't like to see guns in the stores.
Like Open Carry Vancouver does a weekly thing at a coffee shop in town, and it is a local place, and they're embracing the pro-gun community. But, should you totally avoid places that aren't posted just on the off chance that they're gonna go the other way? I say no. You're letting those other people that weren't even around when with another group affect how you do your actions, and they've won if you do that, in my opinion. If you don't go to some place that you're already allowed to, I agree, don't go in there and be a douchebag with a big group of people and be rude customers, but if you go in and be polite, have your meeting without being rowdy or whatever, there's no reason you should not go there just on the off chance that somebody's going to, drop a phone call and potentially do something. I don't want to live my life that way.
I got here late. I don't even know when you started. Did you guys already talk about the Chipotle deal? Because I don't know much about that.
I mean, I
That's
think we
what started
covered it.
it.
Sounded like it was really just a repeat of the Starbucks scenario. And what's
So
the
right
next?
now, Chipotle is anti-gun then, because I've seen it both ways. That's why I'm not sure what's actually happening. They're saying you can't carry guns in their stores anymore.
They don't want
I think more than. I mean, here's the thing. I think you're pushing your hand to where they're not going to be able to say, don't carry your rifle slung over your shoulder in our store. They're just going to have to say, no guns in our store. Right? They're not going to say, concealed carry's okay, but open carry's not. Right? Even though they may feel that way, the more we push people's hand.
Is this all because of these two kids in Texas with the rifles?
It was a lot more than 2 kids. I just saw, what's his name, just put a picture up. There were at least 5 people with AR-15s slung across their chest taking a photo in front of the counter.
Right.
Okay,
So
5 people that just went in there just to, they were...
There was a open carry, awareness thing, protest thing.
But I mean, was it like a yay for Chipotle? Because didn't they say, like what you were saying before, that at some point somebody asked them, what's your position? And they said, we're just going to go with whatever the local laws are. So did these 5 guys go in to applaud them? Or did
sure
they just
that
come
when
out
they
of the blue, out of nowhere?
Well, I'm sure when they picked Chipotle, they probably either cleared it or knew the owner. It's probably a franchise. They probably knew the owner.
So they're just doing some weird stunt on their own then.
Yeah,
It
they're
wasn't
doing
like
a
a yay
stunt on their
Chipotle.
own. I doubt they got Chipotle's corporate headquarters permission to do it there.
And it wasn't, and it wasn't like, I don't know, an AR-15 club that just picked Chipotle to meet at that day or whatever?
No. This was, people in Texas don't walk around with AR-15 strapped across their chest, even though it's legal. This is an open carry group who passes out pamphlets on street corners with shotguns slung over their shoulders or AR-15s on their chests.
Okay, then they have no excuse for creating a policy against firearms. That's a issue where they don't want public assembly in their place of business. The first time they brought firearms into it, they've lost me.
I say we protest against Chipotle by all concealed carrying into a Baja Fresh and getting our burritos there from now on. Or a Taco Bell, or just literally anywhere else but Chipotle.
Well, I like Chipotle, though, that's the problem.
I do love Chipotle.
Well, which do you love
I don't
more?
ever eat there, but
Chipotle brand burritos or your gun racks?
Well, I don't care about anything like that. I like that Chipotle run the way they run their business. I don't like the way that they made that one decision, but I like the way they run their business otherwise. So that's the debate. I don't
Yeah.
think they're attacking gun rights. I think they're poorly defending this particular issue. They just did it in a too big a step, it sounds like, if they went to a national reaction for what 5 guys in Texas did.
Well, I mean, let's face it. The reality is, if you continue to carry your concealed gun in there, who knows about it?
The whole point of conceal is that nobody's supposed to know about it. So, I
Right.
just business as always. I conceal.
Okay,
I personally conceal.
That's
so
number one. So who does it affect?
Well, then that's like saying you can be black as long as you wear face paint. You can be gay as long as you don't talk about it. You can carry a gun as long as we don't see it. You can do anything you want as long as it all comes down to, you look the same as everybody else when we're in public. Bullshit.
Hey, G-Webs, just so you know, I'm white, so for me to be black, I would have to wear face paint.
You know what
But
I'm trying to say.
But even if you look at the policy thing that went on with Starbucks, Starbucks basically said, don't push us to the point where we're going to ask people to leave with their guns. Because I know people that still open carry into Starbucks. They're not doing large group meetings, but nobody says anything to them because it's onesie twosies or whatever,
Well, let me put it this way. Remove ourselves from Chipotle or Starbucks, right? Do we, as a gun community, want to be pushed around and told that we can't open carry? I mean, that's what it's really is, right? So.
Yeah. I prefer not to be told not to, but
Yeah.
in the end, if it's a corporate entity or whatever, you have to deal with the policies they have in place.
Right. I don't like to be told how much I have to tip on groups over X amount. I don't like to have to pay for valet parking in certain areas where I go to a place where there's no other option. But I accept those things if I choose to patronize that business. And if a business chooses to take a position that I don't support, then I don't support them. And there's not much more, unfortunately, that I can do, in today's capitalistic society. Me as a business owner, I have to draw my line in the sand. Unfortunately, people who feel that guns don't belong, quote unquote, in businesses are greater than those who feel that they do. So that's where corporate policy is going to fall on, I think.
Where did that assumption come
No,
from?
I think that they're making a louder squawk for taking them away than we are for making our argument for keeping them there.
Exactly.
I think that's more of what's going on.
I'm saying if you approach the business owner and say, do you want to allow firearms in your business, yes or no? Where do you think they're going to fall on, whether it's an informed decision or not? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, they're going to vote in what they would think public opinion. Right now, unfortunately, public opinion is less guns, less violence.
It's a PR thing. Yeah.
Right.
I've only ever had one business that I asked about open carry, because some of the places I know I'm going to be going a lot, I'll ask them before I come in. I'll be a concealed carry, but I'll ask them about open carry. I'll say, hey, how do you feel about me open carrying a firearm in your restaurant? Because most of the time it's going to be a restaurant that I'm going to. I had one Asian restaurant that said, we would prefer that you don't, and I honor that, But the rest of them were okay with it. I did have one say, I'm okay with you doing it. If it creates problems with customers, we'll revisit the issue. But they were very polite about it.
Exactly.
And,
those restaurants you went
I was
to.
very diplomatic, and I didn't say,
Then let's say
to that one company, because you won't let me open carry, I'll never fucking step foot in the door again either,
I don't like it when old ladies wear way too much perfume, right? It bothers me. I don't like it. It's horrible, and it bothers people in the restaurant, right? That is truly offensive to anybody who has to stand around them. But because it's not polite to go up to a lady and say shit about it, you don't say shit about it, right? And obviously, I'm never going to tell a lady about that. But what's the difference between us going, hey, Chipotle, or let's switch it to Starbucks, because I think little ladies probably go there and hang out more. So, okay, Starbucks, you keep letting your bridge clubs play in the front there. I don't want to go in anymore because now it doesn't smell like coffee. It smells like old lady perfume. Where would there be an uproar against that? Yeah. So we're letting them push us around just because of this perception. I think if the question was what do we do about it, we freaking walk in lockstep as gun owners and never frequent a restaurant again. We take our money and we never use it again in those kind of restaurants. And you have to, I guess, have some sort of like here in Tucson we have like a local group that Maureen was saying they go out and they open carry at a restaurant once a month or something as like an open carry group. But somebody like that who keeps track of restaurants, maybe the NRA has a big list, and it says like
a blacklist.
I have an app
there you
for
go.
my-
I don't want to call it a
my-
blacklist, but like here's people that need to be educated that we have power, and then and not power like in a physical way, but power like in a group way, and then go to the step of making the little cards just like we do now with any store that says you don't open carry or you don't allow carry of firearms, so I'm never going to frequent here again. Just to let you know, I'm going to tell all my friends that we're never going to eat here again. It's just a little subtle card that tells them we don't agree with your policy. And once they start, like you said, they get 5 phone calls, that's 5% or whatever, that's enough to make them scared. Well, once they start getting enough of these cards and it's subtle and it's not like in the news and they start going, uh-oh, and then all of a sudden store numbers start going down dramatically, we win. And now it's not, now we don't see stores kowtowing to that vocal minority and instead sticking with the original decent rule, which is go with whatever the laws are of the area.
Yeah.
But how do you get all gun owners to agree to not go to Chipotle with those delicious burritos?
So let's imagine a scenario, and I'm kind of playing devil's advocate here, where you're a business owner and you put out a sign or a statement that says you support all local laws, and now there's 5 guys that decide to meet every day for 3 or 4 hours a day at your business, slinging AR-15s over their shoulder. Where do you draw the line on keeping your business open and supporting their rights to open?
Hey, when I was a kid, I ran restaurants, right? I did that for a while. And if there was a bunch of skateboarders out front screwing around and not ordering anything and, making it look like it's a skateboarder hangout and not a place for people to come in, I'd walk outside and get the hell out of here. And if a bunch of people came into my shop and were pissing me off, I'd say, get the hell out of here. This is weak-ass managers who don't want to deal with anything, so instead they let the corporate make a policy. And again, they need to be slapped. The corporate level needs to be slapped and said, no, you don't make corporate law. If you want to make corporate law, then you suffer for the fact that none of us are going to eat your crappy burritos again.
Yeah, and when I owned my bar, I put up a no open carry sign because my insurance required me to. But if someone open carried in, I didn't enforce the sign if they didn't make a deal out of it. Now, if somebody walked in with an AR slapped over their shoulder, I'd call the police.
Well, that's because your own opinion about open carrying long arms versus handguns. But
no, it's because I can't think of any possible reason why someone would need to walk into a business on 28th Street with an AR over their shoulder. So I'd call the police.
Yeah. But the problem I have with what Guru was saying is you made it sound like they were loitering for 3 hours. Any business where you have people loitering and not taking of your services, you can redress that by saying, hey, either you're gonna be an active customer or you're welcome to leave. It has nothing to do with the firearms. It's that you're loitering at the place.
Let's assume for this discussion that they are purchasing, 1 item an hour. They're making it their local hangout. You don't understand what I'm saying? As a business owner,
I guess I could only agree with that argument if it was causing a loss of other business.
Well, obviously it would be, because the vast majority of people are going to want to hang out in a Starbucks and hang around whenever there's a group which they feel might be dangerous or whatever. I'm not saying it's right or wrong.
You're speaking for an awful lot of people. A lot of people don't really care, and as long as they don't feel threatened, it's not that big of a deal to them.
Okay,
well,
Luke.
I would still base it on.
I gotta agree with Maureen.
I would base it on a one-by-one basis. If someone's in there doing something I don't think there's any reason for them to be doing, and they're bothering my other customers, they're gone. Whether it's carrying an AR, whether it's singing out loud to themselves as they eat their food, whatever it is they're doing, if they're bothering my other customers, they're gone.
Now, Yankee, if that guy came in and said, hey, I'm on my bike and I'm just coming from the range, you care if I throw this AR in the booth or whatever with me? You're going to be like, sure, right?
Actually, I'd probably just say, here, I'll let you lock it in the office until you're done.
But okay, but I'm saying it's not like you were saying if you bring a long arm in, you're going to jail. It's just that if they came in and acted weird and then had a long gun on.
just for the purpose of drawing attention. Which, let's face it, these guys that are going to Chipotle with ARs, they're not going there because they just happened to stop at Chipotle with their ARs that day. They went there with an agenda.
Right, exactly.
So I want to reframe your
those
thing,
5
Yankee.
people are abusing guns, or they're exploiting guns. They're the ones who are to blame here.
So
And
Yankee,
then
if
Chipotle.
you I'm sorry, Yankee, if you're when you had your business, if you had a regular customer that for a period of time decided all of a sudden, I want to show my rights and carry an AR, and you knew the guy, and he's not a threat to anybody. He's not one of these guys that hangs out by City Hall trying to get police attention or whatever. Do you think you would handle that person different than that other scenario you put out?
Nope, I'd tell him do it somewhere else because this is my business, not your living room.
Well, and it's not your soapbox to make your political statement on. You can go do it on the public street and see what the cops say, but yeah, I can understand what Yankee's saying. If you're trying to run a business and some guy's like, well, I want to make a political statement today. Well, unless I invited you there, then get the hell out. But it's the same thing as if you brought in, like, I want to make a political statement about fur, so I'm going to bring in a bunch of dead minks or something. I mean, the AR is lost in the fact that these guys just, the Chipotle manager was weak for not throwing this guys out if he didn't like it. Those guys are weak for exploiting the rifles for their, 5 seconds of fame. And then the Chipotle upper level is the one that really needs to be slapped because they made a massive overreaction saying that nobody in the whole country can carry into their stores now.
Okay, what if the local manager agreed and he allowed them to come in and he may have even supported their right to hold it?
And he probably...
Then it probably wouldn't have been an issue, right?
And he probably...
That's what happened there. That's what they're saying.
Yeah, the local guy supported it, but the
local guy supported it. It's when it got out and got to corporate that they looked at it and went, holy crap. And they probably chewed him a new one and then released this thing.
Oh, then that's even worse. They legally went in there doing things within the law, and that guy said, just the same way as if a Little League team came in and said, hey, we're going to sing some Little League song just, to brighten up the day on Little League Day. That's him saying, sure, go ahead and do it. You've got the okay. Now, if corporate, again, is going to make a massive overcorrection, that's corporate's fault again.
Right, and again, that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with corporate guys. I don't know, some of you've worked in corporate, some of you haven't, but corporate guys who sit in big offices and make decisions, this is what they do. They overreact. They trip out. They worry about things. They worry about lawsuits. They worry about all sorts of things, and they usually make the wrong decisions.
Well, it basically comes down to what they're worried about is at the end of the day, if we got sued, would this work against us? That's basically what their end goal on everything is. So at the end of the day, they sit down and they say, okay, if we let people come in with ARs, and then someone with one of those ARs shoots somebody, is that person's family going to sue us and say, hey, you created the environment where my loved one got shot, therefore you're responsible, and that would hold up in court more than likely. So that's how they make their decision.
And hold on.
If it's within state law, I have a hard time believing that that's going to go against them in court when they were just allowing unlawful activity.
Luke.
Oh, no, it's even if I hold a shooting event on my property and someone gets shot, like 2 guys get mad at each other and shoot each other, I could very easily be held liable because I created that situation where the guy got shot.
Luke, okay, so I went out and shot my AR today, and if I went into a Chipotle's and saw 5 guys or 10 guys with AR-15 strapped across their chest, I would continue and go ahead and eat my burrito. I'm thinking to myself, but my mom wouldn't. My dad wouldn't. My wife wouldn't.
I wouldn't either.
I'm sitting here counting on my hand, and I'm like, I'm the only guy in my entire freaking family out of 15 people who wouldn't, like, if they saw that looking in, wouldn't turn around and walk right out that door.
Well, I like to point out to people that everyone likes to talk about their own situational awareness and avoiding bad situations. If you walk into a place and there's 12 guys with ARs strapped on them in there and you don't leave, then your situational awareness is iffy, because there's very few situations where you run the scenarios in your head where there isn't increased risk there that wouldn't make it worth going someplace else.
If the store's not actively being robbed, and you don't
A, know those people's intentions. You don't B, know those people's mentality.
I don't know what a concealed carrier's intentions are, Yankee.
But you don't.
Fuck,
But
if you go by that metric,
a level of risk.
if you go by
A level of risk from a
if you
concealed
go by
carrier is not the same level of risk from a guy with an AR with 30 rounds in it. If you can't evaluate,
why is it any different? It's still a person with a firearm, Yankee.
It is
You're making
hold
the
on. It is
anti-gunner's fucking
absolutely
argument for
different.
him.
it's absolutely
absolutely
100%
different.
different. It's absolutely a person with a five. You can't sit and say a person with a 5-shot revolver under their sweatshirt is the same statistical and viable tactical risk as 3 guys with AR rifles. It's not the same risk. You wouldn't.
Unless
What if I
ARs
got-
drip some
what
kind
if
of
I got a
syrup that
Glock-
makes you
what
want
if
to
I
kill
got a
people
Glock
or
with a
something.
30-round mag in it that I'm
Still
concealed
not the
carrying? I
same
have
as-
the same
still
number
not
of
the
shots
same
as that.
Still not the same thing as 3 guys with an ARs. If
Yeah,
I had a concealed carry pistol, I would have almost no chance against someone with a rifle of coming out
It's
living.
about the intent of the person with the firearm, and you
And
can't.
how do you know what their intent
You
is?
can't say because they have a specific type of firearm.
How do you know what their
than
intent
anybody
is?
else?
So how do you know what their
Why
intent
don't you
is?
go sign up with the anti-gunners, Yankee? Fuck, you're making
No,
their own
how do you-
argument
how
by
do you
saying.
know what their intent is?
Hold on.
How
How do you know what their intent is? Their
Wait.
intent is obviously peaceful if they're not in there shooting up the place.
I
How
got-
do you
I got a
how can you
question.
assume
Hold
that they're
on.
going to be an evil intent?
You don't
I'm
know
not
that.
talking
There's
about.
several situations where those people that shot up the place in Seattle, they went and sat and had coffee for 2 hours before they got up and started shooting the place up. So you don't know what they're.
Yeah, and they had a criminal plan to do a criminal act, and it doesn't matter what laws you pass. They
Would
just
you
don't
let me
fucking
finish
done
the
it.
sentence? So I'm not going to put myself in a situation where I know if things went bad. I have to play the scenarios in my head. That's part of my risk assessment. I can run the scenario, everything from these are the best guys in the world and I want to have coffee with them to these guys are waiting for their chance to rob the place and they're going to start shooting. I have to run every scenario between then and there. And if myself, with my own defensive capabilities and my own ways out, if once things start to go bad, I have 0 chance of survival, because they've got ARs and I've just got a revolver, I'm not going to keep myself in that situation. That's part of my situational awareness. That's part of my risk assessment. I'm not going to make judgment on them and say they're criminals. I want them out of here. I'm going to remove myself from the situation because it's a situation where if things went bad, I have almost 0 chance of survival.
And hold on. Let's also discuss the fact that we're talking about the average citizen and their comfortability level, Luke. Haven't you?
Hold on, I want to address
Hold on,
that.
I've got a question for you, Luke. Haven't you stated that when you open carry 1911s with the hammercock back and the safety on, it makes people sometimes uncomfortable?
What I said was they're less apt to talk to me about the firearm. And that's why I carry the one that doesn't have the cock thing, because I get more conversation. I've only ever had one person even mention the fact that I had one cocked, but when I wore the other gun, I noticed more people talk to me. That's why I made that differentiation there. Okay.
Okay, so
we've
you
addressed that.
noticed you noticed when you open carry that when you're carrying the gun that doesn't have the hammercock back on it and looks more like a not ready to go gun, you get more conversations. Okay.
Right.
So if you carried an
so
AR,
there might be.
I have a question. If you could open carry an AR-15 across your chest, would you do that so you could go have open carry conversations, or would you go with the pistol?
Well, if I wanted conversations, I'd be slinging it over my back, because on your chest would seem more aggressive to the general public.
Okay.
Because people look at it different ways. If it's in front of you, you're prepared to use it. If it's slung over your shoulder or on your back, it's not in a ready-to-use situation, which sort of happened with that guy in Texas that was walking his kid on that Boy Scout walk. He had it at the ready, and it put him in a bad situation with the law enforcement officer. I agree with why he had it at the ready, because he was worried about predator attacks, and that was a good thing to do. He wasn't in a public area, and it was the right thing to do. It created problems with the police, but it's, apples and oranges between those two different situations.
Hey, Luke, you know how, I remember when you were talking about when you were talking about having your 1911s with the hammercock and why you switched to your, I guess, I don't remember, what is your para? You said that
para
guy actually came up to you one time and said, hey, you realize that gun's cocked, right? And then you pointed out the safety to him. If he thought enough about a 1911 to say, hey, the hammer on that gun is cocked, but he didn't know enough to realize that there's a safety on a 1911. How do you think that kind of person, or somebody even less educated, is going to know the difference between slung over your back and at the ready position? See, I agree with
All right,
you.
I guess
I agree with you,
I
but
guess the core of this is how you present yourself when you're doing the activity. Okay. So
yes.
we got the one YouTube channel who will not be named, goes around provoking people. Okay. I open carry my 1911, whether it's hammer cocked or not. Most of the public doesn't even notice that I have it on. Period. They don't even see it. Right. Those that do don't seem to be alarmed by it. All right. So, as long as you're not presenting yourself in a what I would consider a threatening manner, and people have a way of reading body language. If you're relaxed with what you're doing, because like that one ass crack that does those open carry things, he's nervous, and his nervous energy is felt by the people around him through body language, right?
Well, I'll tell you
So
one.
he gets a different reaction than if I had done the same thing and I was relaxed and comfortable with what I was doing. I don't seem as threatening because my body language isn't sending the same message. So, you can make the argument that not everybody should open carry because some people give off a bad vibe, and I'd agree with that.
Well,
But to just flat out say you should never open carry an AR because the public's going to have an off reaction or whatever, I think is going too far.
I don't see why you should. I would never say you should never open carry an AR, but there's certain places I'm going to assess that risk as being unacceptable for me because I can't think of a viable reason why you would have an AR downtown Portland in a coffee shop. But there's also one other.
And that's how you reason through things.
There's also one other big reason that I don't want to be around a bunch of people carrying rifles on their backs either, and it's because every fucking gun show I go to or every gun rally I go to, I have to ask at least a half a dozen people, hey, would you get your gun barrel out of my face? Because they're standing around with their guns slinging down on their back and sliding down and pointing at your head and pointing at your face while they're standing in front of you talking to people. I can't count how many times I've had to say, hey, would you point your barrel up? Your barrel's pointing into the crowd or it's pointing at my face while I'm standing next to you, etc. So.
And here's another thing. Just if you see a police officer in uniform and he's carrying a sidearm, nobody thinks twice about that. But when you see a police officer carrying a shotgun or carrying an AR, then everyone stops, looks, and goes, "Is something going on? Is there danger?" And then you take that to the next level where it's a person who's obviously not. I looked at the picture of the guys; they were not well dressed. They weren't in uniform and they weren't in shirt and ties. They weren't
wearing suits and ties while they were dragging their ARs around.
They looked kind of, I don't know, redneckish. But anyway,
or thuggish.
They not thuggish, but just kind of, I don't know. They didn't look like they should be walking around.
Not very well refined.
Yeah, they weren't well refined. So, but if I see, there are cops I see around here, are detectives who are in plain clothes but open carrying their guns, and as soon as I look at them, they're wearing a nice shirt, it's pressed, pants, blue jeans that are nice and straight, nice big belt buckle and all that, and I look at them and go, oh, that's a detective, or that's that's some type of detective or cop when I look at them. I mean, it's easy to tell, but these guys certainly didn't look like that either. So it's a perception thing.
Right, and that's part of what I'm saying. Just as much your dress as your body language can present a different narrative to the public. Do I get different reactions when I wear a Ted Nugent Pro Firearms shirt when I'm open carrying than when I'm wearing a polo shirt and I'm open carrying? Probably. Some people are going to say, oh, Ted Nugent's that gun freak, so he must be a gun freak like Ted Nugent. Maybe, but that's them predetermining how I am based on what they see on my shirt.
We need to actually reach out to some of these organizations. I think this is just my opinion, and kind of be like, if you're going to go out and open carry and do these things, it would be really nice if you maybe had matching polo shirts that said opencarry.org or whatever your website is on them, to put forth that money. Get because we do that for my Cub Scout pack.
Well,
so we all
and
match,
have a talk to them about have them talk to them about etiquette, body language, safety with their firearms when they're doing it. These are all things that if you're going to do the activity, they should do. And I'm not going to say all people that go out and do those things right, because obviously there's some issues. But I can't say we need to send the message out to the whole gun community: don't ever open carry and as a small group at any national chain just because something might happen. I don't agree with that at all.
Well, like this is a group called, I think I've linked it in the side chat. I think it is opencarrytexas.org. And, if they all had gotten shirts made up, all matching shirts, and gone in there and worn those outfits, it would have, A, looked a lot better in the pictures, but B, when people see 10 people in matching shirts carrying stuff, they know they're a group of people together. For some reason, it's mentally not as intimidating when you see that. Just like if you see someone in a uniform, it's okay that they're armed.
Oh, yeah? What if all the shirts have swastikas on them?
Well, okay, yeah, okay. Granted, if they have a negative thing on the shirts, but if you look professional and you all match and it's not a hodgepodge, it does go over better with public perception, I think.
Yeah.
And I actually have something that's very relevant to this topic. Like, we just went on our walk to Mincy's. We go every night to Mincy's and get frozen yogurt. We walk. It's 4 miles round trip, so we walk it. That way we can have frozen yogurt and burn a little calories too. I open carried. When I got there, I sat outside because I didn't want to go inside because there's lots of little kids, lots of old people, lots of suburbanites, and I knew it's going to be a little bit of a hassle if I go in. So I just sat outside, and no one said a thing. People sat out next to us. People walked past us. No one said a thing about my gun on my hip. Now, if I'd walked in with an AR, it would have been in a whole lot of trouble for no reason.
But you're also with your kids.
Yeah,
so you're not just a crazy guy with an AR. You're a guy with his family.
If I walked in with an AR on my shoulder, people wouldn't care what I walked in with. Wouldn't care if I walked in with a string of orphans behind me. All they would have seen was the AR, and I wouldn't have gained anything by that. I would not have advanced gun rights in any way. I wouldn't have felt good about myself that I did something wonderful. I would have just been like, wow, I just subjected myself and a bunch of other people to an issue that didn't have to be an issue because they didn't care that I had a pistol on my thing. But I would agree with them that they had a right to wonder, like, why's that guy got an AR in downtown Vancouver in an ice cream shop?
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that video a couple years ago where a guy who speaks with a fake Russian accent drove an APC through a fast food restaurant, and everyone's like, what the F is going on? And I'm sure that's what people kind of thought when they saw people carrying their ARs into this restaurant. What the F is going on?
That was a very entertaining video.
I gotta give credit to those guys. I gotta give credit to those guys because they approached management before they did it. At least at the local level, they had permission to do it. They weren't there and asked to leave and didn't leave or anything like that. So in my opinion, they didn't do anything wrong. Yeah, maybe the corporate saw it and overreacted about it, but it wasn't because they went in there and were being rowdy or being bad citizens or whatever. It's just they had a bad perception of their activity, and that's not their fault.
And we're fighting a propaganda battle right now. We have the other side putting propaganda out against us, and we're having to battle that. And then there's occasionally an instance where someone does something and they're able to use that against us. Well, you know what I'm saying?
It's just bad tactics. It's if you are a lone soldier and you're facing 20 men, if you're in, like I say, you're in a bar and I'm the one sole member of my clan and everybody else in here is of different clans that are against me. You don't stand up on the table at that stage, draw your sword and say, let's fight, because you're a dead man. You try to win allies. You try to win support. And there's so many people that are
obviously not a Marine, because that's how Marines are trained, is to stand up, because then basically
that's why we cycle through so many of them. But you're going to try to win support, and a lot of people are fighting the gun battle in the way that they're the lone man standing on the table screaming at everybody else, and then they get upset when private industry goes, everybody. 6 out of the 10 people don't want you in here, so I'm going to go with the 6 out of the 10 people because that's more profit for me. And we have to start. We can't continue to be an alienating movement where we alienate every other fucker in the world that doesn't agree with us on every other thing, and then expect to be able to win battles like this. Until we start opinion, we're not going to win these battles.
So instead of shaming people that in this particular instance didn't do anything wrong, if you have an issue with the people that are doing a particular activity, why aren't we saying to our community, these are things that we don't think that should be going on? We can't make a rule, but if enough people talk about it and say, yeah, that's not a great activity, or doing this way is a bad idea,
I think the vast majority of us do say that. Every video I do on open carry, the vast majority of people in there go, yeah, I'm okay with open carry, but it's those assholes that take ARs into Chipotles that I have a problem with. I see that just in my last video I did, where I did the Chipotle reference in the middle with Jon Stewart. I've got probably 24 comments on there from gun people that say it's those assholes with ARs in Chipotle that ruined everything. So, a lot of people would disagree with the way they're doing their political tactics, and I would disagree with the way they're doing their political tactics. They're not having any end goal in mind. They let their ego and their desire override their sense of planning and their sense of like I say, strategy.
Okay, so
just doesn't work out well.
I should hold on. I just realized something. I should look into joining their organization.
Whatever.
I only live 20 miles away from where they're at.
There you go.
I'd love to give them some insight.
I want to know
you can
this,
literally
Yankee,
affect change on the 5 people that caused this whole uproar.
So what I want to know, Yankee, is in your world, is there a platform where it's lawful to do it, that you can open carry an AR and be exposed to the public to sort of desensitize them, because they've been desensitized because it's been shamed for so long, that you can create a more positive interaction?
You are not going to desensitize people by shoving ARs in their faces. That goes along with the whole.
I didn't say shove it in their face.
What world do we live in? In Israel, the teachers carry ARs in their backs. In Mexico, people carry around guns all the time. What world do we live in where we get to not carry around guns and we get to be offended if we see a gun?
That image of Israel is kind of blown out of proportion. They don't just walk around.
Is it really, or does everyone in Israel go into military service?
No,
they do, but
you can walk down most any street in Israel and you're not.
All right, can we agree that picture is an indication that they have a different culture than we do? That's all I'm saying, is we live with blinders on if we think that by seeing a long gun we're going to, have to cotter to the lowest of the most fearful people.
Most people aren't going to get upset if they see a long gun. They're not going to get upset if they see an AR. They are, however, going to get upset if 10 people shove ARs down their throat at the Tasty Freeze. And that's not going to be the way you're going to change anything. Do you open carry it up? Would you let me finish the thought, for God's sakes? That whole philosophy is along that whole flawed psychological philosophy that they used to use. That, well, if you're afraid of spiders, we'll just cover you in spiders and that'll cure you. No, it doesn't. That causes trauma and causes worse issues. That's all debunked garbage. So you're not going to desensitize people to ARs by shoving ARs in their face. You have to approach them with facts and reason and reality, and you can't just say, well, we'll throw you into the tigers, immediately.
We're not just saying that. That's 5 people out of a population of, what do we think, 30 million gun owners or whatever, so it's not everyone.
And what was the real reaction to that? Now an entire nationwide company, doesn't allow firearms in their business. That's the real world
exactly.
What just happened.
And that's the frustrating part, is that we're going to sit there and stop there, let that happen. That's the result. Bullshit. The result should be the overwhelming outcry of firearms owners that are saying the exact same thing you're saying, Yankee, that these are just 5 people that did something inappropriate. You overreacted. That's the part where we're dropping the ball by just saying, oh, okay, when the corporate people made their decision, the thing is over. Now we have to go on to the next news story. Media, please tell us what we have to argue about next week.
And we should be doing that. And we should be saying, hey, I may not agree with their tactics. And I don't agree with carrying ARs in public places. I mean, I don't see a need for it. But, your need might be different than mine. It's like when I pull up at Sportsman's Warehouse and I see someone get out with an AR on their back. That doesn't strike me as shocking at all. If I pull up at Dairy Queen and someone gets out with an AR on their back, that strikes me as more shocking. Now, if I had a backstory on the guy and he's like, hey, I just came from four-wheeling and, I don't want to leave this in the car because my car locks don't work. That's completely okay. That's legitimate. That doesn't bother me at all. But if you're trying to do it just for the sake, but see, that's a real reason. He had a real reason to be doing that. When you just get a bunch of people just do it, it shocks people, and they don't see it.
We understand. We're thinking about different things. You go back to the days of what's the show where they whistle in the beginning with the dad and the kid who's a sheriff and everything.
Andy Griffin.
You go back to Andy Griffith Day. Guy's out hunting rabbits. He brings his lever action, sets it down, has coffee, piece of pie, goes home. No big deal, right? Well, the AR is the equivalent of the lever action. So yeah, it's scary. But why do we have to be the ones to put our tails between our legs, say sorry because our gun looks too aggressive for you idiots that are too uneducated to know that this is the same thing as a lever action would have been when it was black and white TV, Again, we were talking black and white TV days. 40 years ago, people would have carried a rifle into a restaurant. They wouldn't even have batted an eye.
Now, I don't know where that would be at, because I was raised in rural West Virginia, and if we came back from squirrel hunting with our shotguns, we couldn't stop anywhere and eat or go into a store unless we had a place to store the rifles in the vehicle, because we couldn't walk into.
I know you're old, but you're not the 50s or
Johnson's
whatever.
Market or something with our rifles. They'd throw us out. Yeah, but unless they knew us personally. That'd be different if it was like the corner market in our hometown where they knew us. But like if I was in Ripley squirrel hunting and I walked in with a rifle, they'd throw us the hell out of a grocery store or something. And that was in the 70s. So
I can't believe that there isn't a scenario where the public can be exposed to people with AR-15s, that there can't be some learning from the public that they're not always these big bad things that show up at school shootings.
Well, let me tell you, what are you trying to teach someone by showing up at Tasty Freeze with an AR? I mean, what's the lesson there?
They have an interaction with somebody that doesn't shoot them with the gun. That's a positive experience.
But they don't usually stick around for an interaction with someone. That they leave and think, wow, I'm glad I left, because that way that guy didn't shoot me with that gun. So you're not really gaining that interaction so much with those people.
I think you're projecting your own feelings on other people's beliefs.
I think that's the majority of what's happening, or else we wouldn't have chains that are now saying that, okay, it's the financially viable reason or the financially viable option for us to say no guns because we're going to offend far less people.
Nope, I think what's happening is they're saying we're going to get less squeaky wheel, we're going to get less feedback if we kowtow to the people that are anti-gun, because they know we ain't going to do nothing. We're polite and responsible, and we don't yell and complain when our rights are wailed on like that.
Or they sit and they say that the only people that aren't going to come in our business now are the people that would want to carry AR-15s on their shoulders when they're in here, and they figure that's such a small minority that they don't give a shit.
You just reinforced my position that, again, they're not considering us an actual portion of the population, us as gun owners, not the people carrying ARs in. They're letting those 5 people be indicative of the rest of us. And because we don't get up and stand as a unified voice and say, that ain't us, that's 5 people, that's 5 individuals. You made a wrong decision, goodbye money.
So are you saying, just to clarify, so you're saying that we need to stand up and say, decry those guys that did that or support those guys that did that?
We're saying the business
decry the people that the people that made the decision at a national level. Tell them that they did a poor decision.
Well, and we're gonna show them how by not giving them. Show them?
I mean, but what are we going to show them that our position is? Our position is that we support going into their business with ARs, or we don't, because they're going to make their decision based on whether they think the majority of their customers are going to support our decision or our position or decry our position. So we have to make our position known.
It's bottom line. If let's say Chipotle's, because that's what we've been talking about. So Chipotle's made this decision that they're not going to allow open carrying of rifles. If all the gun owners that chose to participate went into the place that they had normally frequented and said, "Hey, we disagree with your overreaction to this one incident. I'm going to take my business elsewhere," and they see a decline in their bottom line, they might reevaluate their position. But if we just sit here and do nothing, like all those guys,
if that happened with Starbucks and then with Chipotle and then with the next one, then they're going to the next one, the 4th one is going to know, we shouldn't do that.
Well, I think more importantly, what G-Webs is trying to get across is that as a gun community as a whole, we should support one another and not be divided if someone decides to carry an AR-15 to an establishment.
No, don't put words in my mouth, because that's going to fall right into Yankees bullshit. No, I'm saying that we have to stand together as gun owners and say that your decision at a corporate level to scorn all gun owners because of the actions of 5 people was wrong. And not even acknowledge the 5 people. That's a non-issue. The 5 people were 5 individuals. We're talking about the corporate decision that was made to outlaw the ability to carry an open carry gun into a Chipotle nationwide. That's the part where we have to tell them that was wrong. And again, if we did that with Starbucks, we did that with Chipotle, we did that with the next one, the 4th one would never decide to do a national level ban on guns, because they would know, the same as the politicians know, you can't do a national level ban on guns because we won't stand for it.
We'll never get the consensus, but there's 80 million gun owners, but 80 million gun owners don't react together in lockstep on an action.
And we shouldn't
because we're forced to stand behind the 5 fucking individuals who carry the guns, which is bullshit.
Which is
manipulation. We
which
need
is
to stand
exactly-
together against the corporate decision of Chipotle.
Which is exactly what I think a lot of us are saying in different ways, is that we have to be able to stand up and say, what you did to me because of those assholes is wrong.
Perfect.
I don't have
That's
to
exactly
support
right.
those assholes. I don't support those assholes. But what you did to me is wrong. But
No, I don't think we have to also say we don't support those assholes, because I honestly don't give a damn about those 5 people. And if people want to bring long arms in, I say go for it. What the hell? If you want to make that decision, and if it's a poor decision and you have to take the responsibility for it, go for it. But shouldn't have to be involved at all, right?
Well, but unfortunately, there is such thing as perception as reality, and association is perception, and people associate us with them, and they perceive us. The reality is that we're with them. So that's what we all want to do. That's what it comes down to.
I'll tell you what, I'm with the lady in this picture right here with her 2 daughters with an AR open carried in a Chipotle. I'm with that woman. So if you're going to try to say that those 5 assholes who instigated this have anything to do with that lady, then whatever. But I suggest we don't even acknowledge the 5 people. And again, we push the buttons where they need to be pushed at that corporate level.
Is that an AK? That's an AK, isn't it? But yeah,
I just got a tattoo to my face too.
Yeah, but
it is an AK.
The problem is when you have the majority that's vocal and loud, and I mean the minority that's vocal and loud and offensive, and you don't deal with your own issues, people start to think your whole organization. It's like if you've got the Catholic Church and 1% of the priests molest little boys, and then you don't deal with that issue, you cover it up instead of dealing with it, well, now everyone thinks all Catholic priests touch little boys. So when gun owners, as a group, when we allow one person to do something completely, totally ignorant or something we don't agree with, and I'm not saying it's these 5 people, I'm just saying if they do something...
there was no allow.
And we just say, well, it doesn't matter whether it's allow or not. If after the fact we just stand by and go, hey, we have to support them because they're part of our group, and we try to deal with it that way, people assume that we, like all Catholic priests, are guilty by association. So you have to consider that when you plan your strategy. Because not all Catholic priests like to touch little boys, but because the few that did got help from all the others to try to cover it up, now everyone thinks all Catholic priests like to do that.
Well, part of what I got a problem with is, like, 5 times now you've said the guys at that particular Chipotle's are assholes or whatever. They talked to the manager. There was no police involvement. There was no other things going on. And they left there without a problem. Somebody saw a video and made a knee-jerk reaction to what they saw in the video. But you're calling them assholes and bad representatives of our community.
What was their goal? I mean, have them explain a viable goal to me. What was their goal from that event?
I really
Maureen dropped out, but do we know what the goal was? Have they those 5 guys or whatever said anything?
You have to assume that their goal was desensitize people to seeing ARs.
And did they do it properly? Apparently not. I mean, if they did it in a way that they said, you know, way I would have done it if I was going to do one of these events, I would make sure that it was planned in advance. I would make sure that it was advertised, that people that were coming there that day knew it was happening, knew what was happening. They just didn't see a bunch of people sitting around with ARs. I had literature on the scene explaining why we were doing what we were doing, and, you know, so forth. You know, just showing up with ARs on your shoulder, even if you get permission, it doesn't accomplish anything. Whereas if you showed up in, like Nathan said, in uniforms, you had literature sitting out saying, this is my rifle, I'm an honorable American citizen, I would defend you if you were in danger, so this gun is for my defense and your defense, etc., and it will never harm you. Well, then you're accomplishing something. You've got a goal, and you're trying to reach it in a way that is beneficial. But if you're just showing up because you want attention, or you're just showing up because, you know, oh, let's show up with ARs and piss off the lefties, well, then you're not accomplishing anything. You're actually hurting things.
So it begs to ask a question here. There's 2 different things that we're looking at in the situation that, as in the big picture. Do we, as a group, need to have a little bit of firearm discipline, like what, when, and what to carry at certain times in certain places?
No,
I don't
think so.
No, not really.
Okay. I want to get all sides of this. And the other one is that how do we address this overall homophobia that happened with the general public? That's when the minute they see something that resembles a weapon, they go crazy. You weren't here earlier, Yankee, but somebody mentioned earlier that there was a SWAT team exercise nearby, and I think a restaurant. I'm not sure what was. The patrons got all the bank, yeah, and they all went. They all got scared and worried all of a sudden, even though the exercise was like what, across the street or something like that. And it's basically this perception that anything that has to do with a weapon or anything has to do tactical, anything has to do with even remotely with violence has this very unnerving effect in a society where we expect to be living in a safe environment, where we expect everything,
And it should. I wouldn't want to live in an environment where if I'm sitting here in my living room and all of a sudden I notice 30 armed guys and people in hazmat suits running into my neighbor's house, that I would be like, it's all in a day. I wouldn't want to live anywhere where that was the norm. I want to live in an area where I would think, wait, that's unusual that there's 30 armed guys and people in hazmat suits running around over there. I'm like, I would want to wonder, am I being exposed to something harmful I shouldn't be exposed to? Is there a danger right now? Etc.
Hey, Yankee, real fast, two things. Number one, I like to wear a hazmat suit because it's my choice, and there's not a law against it. And,
I still want to know why you're doing it. I might go over and say, hey, is your house radioactive? What's going on?
But more importantly, I think when Marine dropped out of the call, you started to explain your position that he kind of asked you a couple of times, and then right as you were finished, like right after you finished, he hopped back in. So if you wanted to go into if they were going to desensitize people to ARs.
Oh, you mean what I said, like how I thought they should have gone about it, or how I went to hit the
mute button and accidentally closed the tab.
If I was going to go about doing what those five guys done, the way I would have done it, I wouldn't have just been, hey, can we show up today? Sure, you can. I would have made sure it was advertised in advance. I'd be like, hey, can we put this flyer in your window saying we're going to be here Friday at 5 o'clock and this is why. Then when I got there, I'd be organized. I would have literature as to why we're doing it. I would have, like I was explaining, pamphlets that say, listen, I'm an honorable, law-abiding citizen, maybe even I'm a veteran, etc. This rifle is for my protection and yours. This rifle will never harm you, blah, blah, blah. And, that is positive press. That is desensitizing people. Just five guys showing up with rifles and people going, why are these five guys here with rifles? That's not desensitizing anyone. That's setting off alarms in people's heads.
Okay, so Yankee, so let's say they did it the way you said. That suits your narrative, which I agree, that would be a very good way to handle it. Okay, so now they've done that. It's on a YouTube video because somebody filmed it, and Chipotle's management does the exact same thing that they did already.
Well,
do you have a problem with that?
You're dealing with different circumstances. I still don't support Chipotle's decision, period, because I think Chipotle is judging the many by the few, period. But if they made the decision even after the group did that, then I'm even more against Chipotle.
Well, I got to say, I agree with Yankee. If you did it the way Yankee said, then you probably wouldn't get the crazy people getting in an uproar and calling out of nowhere. There's a reaction, like a jerk reaction to the surprise of seeing a firearm. But, on the other hand, if you did everything Yankee said, you're preaching to the choir. No one's going to show up if they hate guns. You're really not doing the job of getting guns in the hands of, like I showed that picture of that mom with her kids. That's letting people know that firearms aren't a big deal. If you make a little display of it and sit out front with a table and have a bunch of veterans back there, that's reinforcing the fact that guns are something that veterans hold, or that you have to make a big deal and stand back, but here's a firearm. I'm about to show you a firearm. Be careful because the firearm's coming out.
They can be women, any adult person. And
no, the fact that they're at a table and that it had to be announced is what I'm saying. Separates it from just casual, there's a guy with a gun, big deal.
You're not sitting in a gun forum doing this. You're sitting in a public place where people come and go, and 90% of people...
and I still say that if you would have gone back to the 50s, not the 70s when you were a kid, because I was a kid then too, and that's when things started changing, but if you go back to the 50s, and a guy walked in with a rifle over his shoulder, somebody might have thought, he went hunting. And then somebody else would have thought, I wonder what burrito I'm going to get, because nobody would have cared back then. Nobody was engineered to be afraid of shit.
I don't believe that, because that's not the story my grandfather tells or my father tells, and my grandfather is the one.
Sorry that you didn't hear stories about real life back in the day, but that's what it was like back then.
Actually, I did a lot of research on the Old West when I did a paper in college, and it was completely different than what people said it was like. So my grandfather's stories, the way he taught me was, you don't go into a business with your rifle after you've been squirrel hunting. You just don't do that. And he's a product of the 40s and the 30s and the 50s, and he doesn't think that's right. So Why would
I'm
I?
not
Part of the
that- I'm
problem
not
then if
that
he
old.
told you not to do it because
I'm
he
not.
could have just
I'm
not
not
said anything.
that old. I'm not that old. And when I was in high school, you could have a gun in a gun rack in your car, and you wouldn't get suspended from school or anything from it unless you went out and took it out of your car and were being a dickhead with it.
Yeah, when I
And it
Now,
was never a problem until they
That's
outlawed
not
it. And then if you
real.
still had it, there's a big problem.
And when I was a kid, I could get on the school bus in the morning with my hunting rifle as long as the school bus driver checked it. And then when I got to school, I had to go to the office, and the principal put it in a storage locker until we left school that day to go hunting. So we could do that back then too. But if I was parading up and down the hallways with it, I'd have been arrested. If I was parading into the local grocery store with it, they'd have thrown me out.
So DB in the chat room, I don't know if he's just poking us or if he's being legit, but he's saying that an AR is not a hunting rifle in general. BS, bullshit, anything from deer on down and potentially deer on up. So, no, I'll challenge that any day of the week. It's definitely a hunting rifle.
No, an AR is
I
not
agree
perceived
with
to
you
be a
in
hunting
Washington
rifle.
because it's not.
But can
It might not be
Because
perceived as a hunting rifle, but that's part of the problem. Again, do we cower in a corner because people don't already know what we know? Or
Well,
do
now
we-
let's
Like there's
let's
this one
answer that
video I saw.
realistically. Is how many states recognize an AR-15 as a legitimate?
Almost all of them, as long as you use a 5-round magazine in some states.
Okay.
I
Well, there you
remember
go.
I saw a video
Washington doesn't
not too long
allow
ago online. I
Washington
can't
doesn't
remember
allow
the
for-
video, but it wasn't even a video online. I think I saw it on the Sportsman's channel, and the guy was
All right,
making
get deer out of it. Name a state that doesn't allow you for coyotes and pigs. That's a hunting item.
Yeah, well, it depends on what size of the animal. But there was a video on the Sportsman's channel not too long ago, not a video, a show. And I remember the guy took a Ruger Mini 14, and he took it with the wooden stocks, and he was like, this is a perfectly acceptable rifle that doesn't scare anyone. And then he took off the wooden stock, put on a plastic stock, a tack rail, and a flash hider and something else. And he's like, now it's evil. You know, that was basically the whole point of the thing. He's like, just a few different accessories. Didn't change the performance of the gun, how the gun works, etc. So that whole ARs aren't hunting rifles. It's just because of the way they're dressed. You know, a lot of people want to make a difference in the guns just because of the way they dress.
So was his point that they are the same gun? If you think the ARs aren't hunting rifles, you're an idiot, or was his or
point
was the
his
guy's
point was
point?
people are making
If
judgments
it's black,
over
it's not a hunting gun.
But his point was people are making the differentiating between weapons based on the color of their stocks and
Okay.
number of things you can attach to them.
And if I went down to my local Chipotle's and I dressed up like that mom with my two kids where I was wearing a mini skirt and put on lipstick and carried the same rifle, people would freaking run for their lives.
Do you have as many tattoos?
Well, let's say I painted on some tattoos so it looked like that. And I wore the same outfit as her and I showed up, people would freak out because I'm obviously a big scary man and that's weird. But I'm just saying that's appearance. And that's what people react to. People never are scared of someone in uniform with a weapon, but they do think it's weird when people not in uniform have weapons.
But I think most of us are not scared of people that have weapons 90% of the time, and it doesn't even set off any alarms 90% of the time. But I think if
you're in a place where it's expected, yeah.
But I think if we're pretending like we're sitting in Starbucks and a guy walks in with an AR-15 on his shoulder, that if it doesn't set off alarms in your head, there's something wrong with you because you should be evaluating that situation and going, okay, why is this?
I don't ever agree with that.
If I'm sitting
I disagree with
and a person walks in
so if someone
with
walked in,
a rifle, I am going to immediately put all my attention on them.
Exactly.
And be ready to draw and defend myself because I don't know what's going on.
Exactly.
No,
if I'm sitting at Dairy Queen and I'm sitting there and some guy walks in and he's got a longsword drawn, I'm going to be like, okay, why has this guy got a sword? If a guy walks in and he's got like mallet hammers in both hands, you know, it's not illegal to walk around with hammers, but I'm going to be like, why has this motherfucker got hammers in both his hands? I'm watching this son of a bitch because I have reason to wonder what he's up to.
And if I'm in the same restaurant and four guys walk in wearing matching shirts carrying ARs with a logo on them that are polos, I'm going to look at them and go, oh, that's some group doing some type of like open carry thing.
And I'm not saying I'm going to react badly to them and go, that guy needs to get out of here. I'm going to watch that guy. I'm going to say, does that guy look like he's a threat to me or anybody else or my family? Because I'm not going to say, well, I've got to just because it's an AR and I support guns, I have to act like it's like reverse racism kind of a thing, like where I got to pretend now like I won't give him any more attention than I give the 94-year-old woman with the walker sitting over in the corner eating an ice cream cone. I'm going to pretend like I'm giving both of those people equal scrutiny. No, of course I'm not going to give them fucking equal scrutiny. I'm going to give the guy with the AR on his shoulder more scrutiny.
Yeah, if a person walks in and they look like a hood rat and they're open carrying, I'm going to be concerned. If they walk in and basically based on their appearance, what they're wearing along with what type of weapon they're carrying, I'm going to say in my head, this is okay, or this is something that I should have an alert about.
It's like look at this one.
I would do.
Let's just say you're sitting in a restaurant and a guy walks in with a rifle, or you're in the grocery store and a guy walks in with a rifle on his shoulder. He's wearing camo, dirty. He's got mud all over him. He looks like he's been in the woods for a couple of days. You're going to think one thing about that situation. Okay, now let's say you're standing in line at the grocery store and a guy walks in with an AR on his shoulder and he's wearing a green leotard, a pink tutu, flippers for swimming, and a snorkel. You're going to give that situation an entirely different addressing. So it's all.
I agree with doing a threat assessment, but once I've determined that they're not a threat to me, I'm not going to give it much more thought.
Well, no. Once I've done the threat assessment, and that's the point of doing your threat assessment, and you also have to, as part of your threat assessment.
But you make it sound like if they came in and you couldn't come to a reason for them being there, that you just leave out of the establishment. And
yes,
the only reason I'd leave out of the establishment is I thought he was a threat, and
there's 5 guys with ARs, and they're not making any point. They're not there for any reason that I can see. They're not there to make a point. They're not there to do anything. They're just there with ARs. And if I'm like, these guys seem at least a bit fishy to me, if I can't justify to myself that these guys are no threat, then I'm going to leave. I'm not going to make them leave. They have every right to be there. But I'm not going to leave myself in a situation that could be dangerous.
Yeah, and if I thought they were dangerous, I'd leave too, but...
Well, and again, that's what like when I was in college, I took a psych course, and one of the things we had to do for a project is go out and dress differently and then record the reactions. So what I did is I put on shorts and a t-shirt and threw on a bathrobe over the top of it and put on my shower shoes, and I went walking through campus with a clipboard. I got stopped by every other person asking me what I was doing. Wasn't anything illegal about walking around in a bathrobe, just people thought it was very odd and weird and wanted to know what was going on. As soon as I said, I'm doing an experiment for psych class, they moved on and walked off.
Yeah,
but again, human appearance is important.
Yeah, it's like I've never been in a Chipotle, but if I was sitting in Chipotle and I'm sitting there eating whatever it is Chipotle sells, I'm going to be sitting there and 5 guys walk in with ARs. Now, if those guys walk over to a booth, they unshoulder their rifles, they clear the chamber, they take the mags out, clear the chamber, and set them in the corner of the booth, I'm going to think nothing of it. I'll be like, these guys are no threat. If they walk in with rifles, they put the rifles in their laps, sitting at the table, and then start looking around the room, I'm fucking out of here.
Oh man, so much to talk about.
Well,
so number one, Chipotle, you should check them out because they make burritos and basically bowls that had the junk that was supposed to go in a burrito, but they try to use like locally grown stuff. They try to buy stuff that's like within the closest to their facility. They use like, I don't know, I guess their chickens are friendly or something. But anyway, they try to really do a good job as far as further than most restaurants.
They're Mexican food, right?
They're burritos only. It's one item. You just decide what you want to put in it.
Because we've got a Chipotle right up on the corner from us, but we also have like a really good family-owned local Mexican place that's like 1 block down.
It's not it's not a Mexican restaurant. They make burritos, a wrap or whatever.
Hold on, let G-Webs get his statement out. Nathan,
they're Brazilian.
Let G-Webs get his freaking thought out.
Brazilian food.
Go ahead, G-Webs.
So thanks. They're a decent restaurant. You might want to check them out because they do have a neat business structure. I think they're a cool company. It's frustrating that they made this decision at a corporate level, but holy crap, Yankee! You're going to allow somebody to unload a firearm in public? That's like the most unsafe thing I could ever imagine. I don't care what anybody's doing. I'm going to change my story and say if you're unloading in public, you've got mental issues. and I would never stand
I
for that.
don't want a rifle sitting there with the barrel pointing at me with a round in the chamber. I'm sorry. Period.
Doesn't matter.
Well,
I don't care, because you just bringing your Yankee shit into it again, because I'm not even talking about a rifle pointed at you. I'm talking about, you said it's okay for someone to unload a rifle in a public place. That's
Yeah,
insane.
we used to have rules. If we entered a place, we had to clear our chamber if we entered. In the military,
Bullshit. Now, if you had a bucket, maybe, but no. That's you ought to know that the most dangerous part of a firearm is when you're loading and unloading. So of course you would never do that in public. It would be the worst level of unsafe firearms handling that I would ever have seen. And I would walk over and make a point to tell them that.
It's unsafe to have
if they walk in and just sit there and have their rifles over their shoulder, and they go around doing their business, and they leave, just like Luke said. If you can't take a look at someone and know that they are no threat to you, then again, I feel sorry for you. You must run around paranoid all the time.
No, because I figure most people are no threat. But if someone has an
and it doesn't matter if they have a rifle slung over their shoulder in a non-aggressive way. That's still not a threat to them.
But you don't think they have But would you not concede that they have a clear tactical advantage over you right now if they have an AR and you've got a pistol?
Yeah, but you know what? I have a clear tactical advantage over everybody I meet. I deal with the fact that everyone has a different level of tactical advantage over each other.
And when you go, and don't you accept the fact that, hey, if things went down, I think I have a severe advantage over 90% of the people that I run into every day? You wouldn't say that, right?
What? Sorry, I didn't.
I got a point for Yankee
You
when
have
I
no
can get
problem
in here.
admitting that, like 95% of the people that you run into in a day, you have a severe tactical advantage over them.
Oh, definitely. Probably more,
So I'm not going to sit in a situation, if I don't have to, where I know people have a severe tactical advantage over me if I don't know them or know their motives, and I can't reconcile in my head why they have that severe
I understand what you're saying. I just fundamentally disagree, because I would see a group of guys coming in with rifles slung in a non-aggressive mode. I would see them as not a tactical disadvantage to me. I would see that as a tactical disadvantage for any poor son of a bitch who tried to come into that restaurant with us.
Well,
I see them as my comrades.
That might be if I know those
fellow countrymen.
That might be if I can know those people and know why they're there.
I don't need to know them personally to know that.
I know they're part of the
immediately that they didn't come in and kill me and that they're good to go. I'm going to trust them until the moment they make a reason for me to believe otherwise. Carrying items is the reason.
I'm never going to make the mistake of saying I trust everyone until they kill my child. I'm going to say I'm going to do everything I can up front to make sure they don't kill my child.
So I got a different bone to pick just real quick, Yankee, because you put out a hypothetical where these guys are loading, presumably loaded but unsafe ARs in their lap, pointing across the restaurant. I don't know many gun owners that would ever do something like that, but you created a situation where they're becoming evil people because they're doing bad firearms handling. None of these situations, other than what we saw, other than what we saw at that event we went to, where people had slung rifles on their back and they bend over and now they're pointing their barrels at everybody. I don't see that happening. I'm more like with G-Webs. They might unsling them and set them in the corner of their booth or whatever, pointing at the ceiling. That's perfectly safe, and I don't want to see them unloading them because that's the most unsafe thing they could be doing, just like you said.
You're asking for accidents at that point.
DB saying non-aggressive mode. I don't know. Again, maybe we just don't agree, or DB's just trying to poke me. But carrying a firearm with the muzzle up or down on your back, I defy you to tell me how you can, use that against someone, unless you're going to back into them really hard and let the some part of the sharp edge of the gun hurt them or something. That's non-aggressive. That's shouldered. That's holstered.
Did I miss anything?
Well, I think the biggest issue, like we've talked about many times, is it's human nature to judge people on appearance and to immediately make an assumption or make a decision based on what you see, what you see visually. So I don't think we're ever going to get away from that or around that. And it's just something I think it is going to take conditioning, not only from the general public, but from, gun owners, whether it's pro-gun or anti-gun.
Even if you agree with that, which I don't know if I do, but isn't it conditioning that they're scolding us for carrying a firearm? Like, how dare you? We need to condition these people to know that long guns are kept out of sight.
All right. Hey, real quick, well, we got a new guy joining us. I don't think he's ever been on any chats that I know of, but you want to take a second to introduce yourself, your channel, and kind of jump in with your thoughts on what we've been talking
Well, I'm
about?
scared. He's got ARs in the picture.
Hey, I'm Sean Carana. I'm the executive director of Florida Carry. I also run a blog and a YouTube channel, All Nine Yards.
Right on.
Oh yeah, right on.
But yeah, I just kind of wanted to jump in with, there's been a good bit of backlash that we're already starting to see out of the state legislators. That they've been coming to me here the past couple of days because we've been pushing open carry legislation here in Florida. And it's been something we've been doing for quite a few years, and we keep telling them, oh no, you're not going to see people walking into Chipotle with an AR-15. It's going to be people respectfully carrying openly, handguns. And then this happens, and our biggest naysayers come out and say, oh, see, there's a problem here. Well, that's why we're not legalizing this in Florida. And the same people that come out and say, hey, we want to do something good for gun rights, and we're going to walk in Chipotle with an AR-15, wind up just blowing this up in my face.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys haven't had concealed carry that long in the bigger schemes of things. Weren't there the naysayers before you got your concealed carry saying, well, now we're going to have gunfights everywhere you turn around because all these people are going to be carrying guns?
Oh, absolutely. We've always.
I want to frame that argument a little bit.
Well, I also want to frame your argument a little bit. Also, I want to frame it to say, would I be right in assuming that you personally don't have a problem if we lived in a society where ARs over people's shoulders were accepted? You wouldn't have a problem with people doing that. But the current environment that you're working in and what you're trying to achieve, you see that as detrimental to what you're trying to achieve.
Oh, absolutely. If it was more generally socially acceptable to do so, and we weren't going to have this huge backlash, then sure, you want to go sling arms with an AR and walk down the street. I mean, you see over my shoulder, then that would be a different thing. But that's not the world. At least that's not the country that we live in.
I want to bring up something real quick that I think we've really left out of this conversation, and that's the fact that these guys were in Texas and they can't open carry a pistol because these same 5 guys might have came in open carrying pistols and had a whole different experience, but Texas doesn't allow open carries of pistols, and we haven't really redressed that very much. They were carrying the only arm they're allowed to open carry.
And that may be the whole point, because like I said, we're also leaving out that supposedly this was a organized demonstration, and that may be the point. They were saying that, look, how can we carry a rifle and not a pistol? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the premise behind their...
Yeah, and see, that would be a good point.
I wouldn't call it a demonstration. It was a display.
If they made it known that was their point, then they might be making progress towards their goals. But when you don't make your point, when you just show up, then you leave it to the imagination of everybody watching because you didn't clarify your position or clarify your point. So if they clarified their point and we just don't know it, then that's on us because we didn't take the time to learn what they made the effort to let us know they were trying to show. But if they didn't clarify the point, that's on them.
Damn.
Okay, so they'd have been better off to wear T-shirts that said, I'm open carrying a rifle that's very powerful because my government will not allow me to open carry a pistol, which is what I would rather be carrying, or something to that effect.
Maybe slightly.
Politically correct, but you know what I'm saying?
Maybe
it might have gone a little different.
Like here since 2010, we've been having open carry events that we hold every month all over the state of Florida. And it's because Florida is one of those 5 states that doesn't allow open carry, just like Texas. Except
you're doing it on private property, I assume?
I'm sorry?
Are you doing those events on private property?
No, we actually do it while we go fishing. And we have it rolled as handguns only. We're doing it in a place where it's more socially acceptable. We're out on a fishing pier. We're out on the banks of a river somewhere, and they're very public fishing areas. But we do it in a place where, well, we're around sportsmen. So it has just as much media impact, and that's what got us a bill a couple of years ago, which we lost at the 11th hour.
Morgan.
But it hasn't had the blowback.
Isn't it? I thought I heard somebody tell us that the law in Florida is you can only open carry when you are fishing or doing something like that.
It's like fishing.
Yeah, open carry in Florida is completely illegal unless you're hunting, camping, or fishing, basically.
Now, I kind of want to ask you a couple of questions because I've heard some kind of crazy proposals or proposed legislation / laws in Florida. For instance, the one that comes to mind right away was them wanting to require the anger management courses. I mean, how much traction did that get? And what was the end result? None. Okay.
That's the other end of the ridiculous extreme. But I just want to have a question. Can homeless people open carry all the time since they're technically always camping?
You know, I've got a couple of
they can because they're always at
that
home.
would argue it.
Yeah. But I don't know. I find it so hard to believe that we have such a disparity between the states. Like Washington has open carry. As long as you're not a felon or whatever, you're not breaking the law to do it. How they know you're a felon unless you got attention enough for them to even try and find out, I don't know. But it's not an issue, you know. So I mean, we do get the couple of ass clowns that go hang around a post office or city hall or whatever to make people anxious, but I don't particularly consider that an appropriate activity to be getting your point.
What's funny is it's funny about the disparity between the states because these days we have some very clearly defined blue states and red states, and some of the red states have the worst gun laws and some of the blue states have the best gun laws.
Well, and it's funny when you
except for they don't allow us full auto.
Well, when you go back and look at the history of these laws and where they really came from, and once you pass a law, it's really hard to get rid of quite often. And you see that they were passed back in 1893, post-Reconstruction. What they really initially came from was keeping the newly freed slaves, the freedmen, from having guns. And then through the years, you get into the 20s and 30s when the courts start saying, well, okay, you have to quit applying this only to black people. And instead of just repealing the law, they said, oh, well, we've just been misapplying it. It wasn't a racist law. We're just going to apply it to everyone now. And so in the 20s through the 40s, you saw this shift to them taking what were the old Jim Crow laws and just started applying it to everyone, which gives us a lot of the gun control that we have now.
That's a good point because that's how a lot of our law, like marijuana laws, for instance, that was kind of done for, I don't want to say slaves, but there was a lot of archaic laws created for minorities back in the day.
Actually, I saw a documentary on marijuana, and one of the big things was not only was it that, but a lot of people from Mexico were smoking marijuana, and that was another reason they made it illegal, because it was viewed as the drugs that the immigrant crop farmers used. So, a lot of these laws are based in racism.
The first anti-drug law in the country was an anti-opium law in California to discriminate against the Chinese railroad workers. So basically, they're all racist in origin.
Don't get this crowd started on the Chinese railroad workers. We'll be here all night.
Now, down in Florida, I mean, you kind of alluded to some of the activities you guys do, but as a whole, what do you find the most effective way to get people to become more educated about concealed carry? Like through your organization, what's the most effective way you found to educate people, I guess, for?
Well,
What can you
as
say?
far as the educational initiatives, I mean, we take kind of a three-pronged approach. It's through education, litigation, and legislation. We're real active in the courts here. A couple of years ago, we passed probably the strongest state firearms preemption law in the country, and we've used that to quite a bit of effect. And we just got through suing a couple of more mage mayors here the other day, actually with some backup from SAF on one of the cases. But as far as just getting out and engaging the general public, it's really a grassroots effort. It's one of the key things we're trying to do is take our state organization and move it more down into the hometown organizations and have local chapters where we have people who are able to go out and engage in the community and really increase that visibility of the legally armed citizen as a good guy.
Now, and G-Webs, you tell me if you think this would be a good idea, and I guess Sean, if you could facilitate this, but like our Every Second Matters campaign, do you guys have a website or something that you could post a link to the Every Second Matters to direct people to that as another media resource?
Oh, absolutely. It's something actually I found out about watching Yankees channel, and we're really interested in it, and would love to pull Florida Carry into the fold there.
Well, I nominate
Your website
G-Webs
is
to be in
Florida
charge.
Carry. Your website is floridacarry.org.
Yes.
And we've already got you on our list of state groups.
One of my other officers must have pulled us in already.
Oh no, we went out and just sought all the groups we could and included them there.
Oh, okay.
But obviously you're a big group, so we wanted to, include them.
Outstanding.
Well, guys, what are we thinking? Any more topics, or we beat this horse to death, or want to keep it going on something else, or?
I think that topic has officially been discussed and figured out.
I think again, just going back to what I was saying, it's all about this thinking, the philosophy that we are of what the types of weapon that we carry and we should carry, and because by all means, I just I'd like for us to be able to carry anything anywhere because we're all peaceful people, but that's not the public perception goes against us a lot of times. So that's a question that's gonna be posed for a long time.
So
But we actively need to be working to change that public perception. We don't just need to accept that public perception and then work around it. We need to actively be trying to change it. We need to be trying to do it in ways that will actually enact positive change, not in ways that will hurt us.
Well, that's what I was just about to ask. Do you think there's a happy medium where we can try to change the opinion of people without bowing to their, I don't know, I guess without being so in your face about it? I mean, I don't want to bow down to people and not do it just because it might, make some people uncomfortable. But on the same hand, you also don't want to be so abrasive and so
Hold on,
your
in the
face
last 3 years, I can remember 2 instances of being in your face. Is it so wrong to be in your face once in a while?
Yeah, why not? Most of my videos are all about defending people.
So here's the thing.
Oh shit, Yankee! Then that just goes against everything you said about the people carrying ARs.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Anyway, no. It's basically this. Yeah. We know we're right on these things. We know we're the law-abiding citizens. We are the ones with the firearms. We know how to use them properly. The facts and the right things are on our side. Now we just got to get that message a little bit more across. And it's the fact that it's the big thing in the sky that no one seems to see, because it's either they don't want to see it or they just want to be blind to it. Is that There are a shitload of firearms in this country. Okay? We're actually doing
110
good.
million.
Yeah, we're actually doing good as a country with so many firearms that there's no rampant violence around. But people perceive that the minute the firearms are introduced as a question, that the violence will be involved. Not all the time, and that's
It's like
what
I like to say
we
that
got the public to realize is that law-abiding gun owners are not violent, and guns don't necessarily mean violence.
and it's like I like to say, I know I know people always were trained to say, and we're trained to use them, but I like promoting the idea that this isn't fucking rocket scientists. You don't got to have a 4-year degree and an aptitude for mechanics to work a firearm. Any 8-year-old can be able to safely handle a firearm if you train them properly, and any adult can intuitively figure out how to. They're not difficult machines to learn to master. You don't point the round in to anybody you don't want to hurt, and you don't fire it if you don't put your finger on the trigger unless you mean fire it. It's not rocket science. So I don't like promoting that we're trained, because we don't need to be trained really to be safe with a gun.
On the other side, I would hate for somebody to walk up to me and say, "Oh, this is my brand new AR."
But also, it's like there's 310 million guns. I can't hear him at all. There's 310 million guns in this country, and last year 98 children died in accidents from guns. There's approximately 195 million personal automobiles in this car, which is less, and thousands of kids died from them. So there's a whole lot of guns out there not doing their job if they're inherently dangerous to be around.
The problem is you're injecting logic and reason into a visceral debate where you have to remember, when it comes to pushing public policy or political policy, perception is reality. And until we can really push that perception where people truly understand what the facts are and get them to embrace those as fact, the best facts in the world don't matter. We have to improve the perception.
Do we, or do we just have to prove the idiots that knee-jerk react to things without education, just shut them up, not physically, but shut them up by being able to come at them with a consistent, logical, correct front so that they can't exploit every time some 5 people get upset and cause a corporation to make a decision like this. The media gets to jump up and down and go, see, we told you, people don't like firearms, most people hate them. They can just say whatever they want now because of it's unchecked. So do we really need to change the whole mass, the whole people in the middle's perception? I mean, I agree that's something to work for. That's just a good way to be, responsible. However, I think to really affect change here, we just have to either make the corporations know the fear of the checkbook, that they make a decision like this in a knee-jerk, in a knee-jerk fashion, that they're going to pay for it. The consequences are going to be financial, and the same way that if the financial or the corporations don't sway, if we're successful in getting the corporations to not sway, then the vocal crazy people aren't going to have the same power, the same voice. They're not going to become crazy. Right now, somebody who just wants to have attention can jump up on the anti-gun pulpit and get a bunch of attention and get a bunch of people going their way. So do we really need to change the perception, or do we just make it less less I'm trying to think of the word, less incentive to want to become that person to yell and scream? Not that we have to force them to not yell and scream, just change the way that the yelling and screaming results. Because if we sit here and just let the result be that long guns are still bad and evil, then what have we even won?
See, now I'm going to differ with G. Webs, because there's 2 different viewpoints we're coming from here. I'm more of a realist, not realist, but I'm more of a pessimist, and I kind of agree with him. Until you convince the idiots, you haven't convinced anyone, because the idiots are unfortunately in the majority. G. Webs is more of an optimist. He always has been more of an optimist. I wish I could give the same amount of faith in my fellow man to everyone that G. Webs gives to his, and he's not faking it. I mean, he really does have those optimistic viewpoints, and he gives people more credit than I think they deserve, and that's the difference. I maybe give people less credit than they deserve. I think he gives people more credit than they deserve. So that's where our 2 viewpoints are going to vary, I guess.
Right on. But I'm just saying neither one is going to happen. But we can't. I just don't want to sit there and say the only thing we can do is wait for popular opinion to sway or try to change popular opinion. mean, that's the thing to do, but I think there's also a way to really take this on, and that's going after the crazy people that craze the alert.
Yeah.
Makes sense? I mean, if you got a bad fire alarm, I don't know if this is the best analogy. If you got a bad fire alarm and it keeps going off, I mean, do you change the batteries, or do you turn the house into marshmallows so that the place can't burn down? I mean, you can go after the squeaky wheel in this case instead of the whole.
Marshmallows.
Well, yeah, and
That was a bad analogy.
That really goes into that shaping of public perception is when you have the the shrill voice out there that's standing on a podium with a megaphone, screaming about things that just make no absolute sense. You have to be able to show the masses that no, this is wrong. It's demonstrably wrong, and change that perception back.
I mean, I can understand why the uneducated gun public would be afraid of guns, because all they see is movies and video games where guns are used for carnal damage, and they get the highlights of the latest mass shooting or the gang shooting in their area if they're in a bad area, and they never see anything positive about guns. It's all death, mayhem, and destruction.
I always get the opposite thing from movies when I watch movies with guns, usually. I mean, maybe I'm watching the wrong movies, but maybe it's just each person's personal perspective, but I guess you can choose and say, oh, crap, the bad guy's got a gun, and that's one way you can look at movies. But I like the way the movies end, and the movie always ends in, ha-ha, the good guy got the gun, and now the good guy wins because he got the gun. And so I always see that as a positive use of guns in movies.
Well, in a way, but the guns are used in violence. Criminals use guns against people a lot in movies and on TV shows.
For the most vehement anti-gun person, they look at someone and, well, okay, he's a police officer, that's fine. He's a military member, that's fine. Or even, oh, well, I know him, so I think he's a little nuts for being a gun nut, but it's no problem because it's Joe, and I know Joe, so it's fine. But everyone who I don't know is a problem. These are people that look at others generally very suspiciously. And it's a hard thing to take and tell someone who's suspicious of everyone that they don't personally know and say, well, you should trust this person with something that could end your life if they snapped and just shot you.
Right. I read an article by a really good author. I forget his name, but it was he was trying to explain why some of the anti-gun people are so afraid of everybody having guns, and he said a large portion of those people aren't sure how they themselves would handle a gun. They aren't sure if they'd shoot somebody or how they'd react to it, so they project that onto everybody else, because they can't deal with their own self, or they might even be afraid if they had a gun that they would shoot somebody, so they think, well, if that's how I feel, then that's how everybody feels,
I actually have a friend who called me the other day because somebody was acting really weird next to her apartment, and the night before somebody had tried to get into her apartment, and I'm like, hey, anytime you want to go gun shopping, just let me know. It's not very far down the street. And she's like, well, I don't know if I had one, if I might shoot somebody, if my roommate's friend came in and I didn't know if they were coming in, I'm afraid that I would just walk out in the living room and just shoot him there. And I'm like, how do you even come to that conclusion?
It's not even logical.
How do you decide that, well, since the most dangerous thing in my house is a knife, I'm not going to kill somebody because that's ridiculous.
Exactly.
But
you're lucky I didn't stab you when you walked into my house.
No, I can't. Well, she has you guys know what I'm trying to say, right?
I
agree with you 100%. It's crazy. It's because it's a gun, now all of a sudden it's magically going to possess me to just go crazy.
As far as personal accidents in the home, I actually get more nervous working my power tools than I do handling my guns, because I've seen too many people that did what I did for them for years lose fingers and eyes to power tools. The power tools scare me more than my guns do.
I get more paranoid over knives than guns.
Yeah, knives make me more freaky too. When I'm holding a knife, because of that sharp edge, that bothers me more than holding a gun.
Yeah. It's just the fact
I
that
found
it's
this little I found this little cartoon that describes pretty much how this entire discussion that we've been having.
Was that it?
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. Thanks for your input.
All right. And on that note,
Well, hold on. I wanted to. Okay, I'll wait till after you did to mention this because it's not pertinent to the thing at hand.
yeah, I think I'm going to end it here. It's been right at 2 hours, so I think that's good enough. If
The guy that drew that cartoon is like the most anti-gun dude I know.
I'm just glad y'all got back from ice cream before it got good.
There you go. Well, hopefully, I don't know, I think this is pretty good chat. Everybody stayed on topic, and so yeah, I appreciate everybody tuning in, supporting us, and participating. And we'll do it again tomorrow. See you later.